I realized something recently. For the last few years, I've been rushing to finish chapters, rushing to finish rows, all to say that I was done. I actually really enjoy slower making, so I've hit the brakes. No deadlines, no pressure, just the stories I want to read and the projects I want to make. So if that intrigues you, stick around. Welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Melissa. I am the dyer behind Rising Dyed Fiber Company. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a while since I've actually sat down and chatted with you about what am I making? What am I reading? So I learned that very valuable lesson over December and January with that really heavy Arctic storm that I want to really slow down and have a simpler version this year of finishing projects and reading. And that is not to say that my reading is going to slow down. It definitely has slowed down. And not for lack of want, but to just slow down and try and savor more of those moments versus trying to be so voracious in what I'm consuming through media and books and then what I'm making. So I do have a couple of finished objects. I don't think I've sat down like this since mid-December. So this should be fun. I only have 2 finished objects. I really have not, I can't say that I haven't accomplished much, but I haven't finished much. The first project that I finished is a pair of Freckled Whimsy socks it's a kitschy Christmas. And so this is her was her January 2026 Christmas Club colorway. I have subscribed to her in years past when she's done her Christmas Club. I don't think she did it last year. I think it was 2024. And I did receive all of those monthly yarns, and I think I knit, honestly, I don't think I knit any of them. One of my goals that I've set for myself, but that I didn't articulate or create any kind of accountability was that this year, if I was going to get this yarn in the mail every month, I needed to knit with it. This was not a scenario where I'm just going to stick it in my stash month after month after month. So I have been diligently working on a Christmas box of socks. I'm about halfway there. So realistically, if I could get my 12 sets done this year, then I would have 24. I'm so close. So I did knit up January's. This was a 6-color repeat. And again, the colorway is called It's a Kitschy Christmas. For those of you that are new around here, I knit on a US 1, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle. I cast on 64 stitches. I do about an inch in my contrasting color. Then I knit for 7 inches. I do my slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset in my contrasting color, and then I knit for 7.25 inches, and then I do my toe. I really love these. Doesn't scream Christmas to me, but it is going in my Christmas box of socks. So I am excited to have these done. So this is finished object number 1. And I did finish these before the end of January, which is pretty cool. And then during this most recent Arctic storm we had, I had been wearing my World's Simplest Mitts by Tin Can Knits in my Pedal Power colorway. And I love these mitts. They fit me well. And I don't know, I think my husband was outside with me while I was trying to clear ice from my truck. And I don't know, we came back in and he had been wearing all week he had been wearing inside this hat that I had knit for him probably like 10 years ago with some Dream in Color classy worsted. And through his travels, he had thrown it in washing machines and dryers. The poor thing has really shrunk up. It's not felted. It doesn't cover his ears anymore. It's like way up here. But he does love that hat. He wears it all the time. So I just looked at him one day and I was like, wow, I haven't knit you anything in a really like a decade. So I was like, I should knit you another hat. And he was like, yeah. But he goes, I would really like a pair of those mittens. The world's simplest mitts. I was like, really? And I said, because I'm not knitting gloves. Like, I'm not knitting fingers. I will knit you mittens if you want. So he did. So I ran out to the mobile yarn trailer because as a dyer who has one, it's kind of a perk. And I pulled out a DK weight skein of my favorite denim jacket. And I did indeed knit him his own pair of mitts so that if he's traveling to colder places or he's running out to the vehicle before it's completely warmed up, which is unlike him, but he will have a pair of gloves. I suspect he wanted them for travel so that when he is someplace that's a little cooler, he has them. So 2 small finished objects, but that does transition me into what I've been working on lately. So because I did those mitts and because I have not made the poor man a hat. Well, he's not poor, I guess. He's rich in love. I did decide to make him a hat. And so I did choose favorite denim jacket. This is a fingering in... I have never made a muscle burr hat. So I decided he does own a hat that is that double fold in it. And the man has a drawer full of mass-produced hats that either I've bought. He does have a couple others that I made early on when I was learning to knit. But I decided that I would make him. I've never knit one before. So I did start one. And I'm making steady progress. I found it incredibly fiddly. Oh, don't tell me. I did. I just found a drop stitch. I guess we're going to tack that down because Lord knows I'm not ripping back that much fabric. I must say I found this incredibly fiddly to begin with. I started on a US 3 because the pattern said use a couple sizes larger than you would knit socks. And I knit socks on a US 1. So I was like, oh, a 3. No, Melissa, that's not 2 sizes. That's not a couple because you have 1.5 and 2.5. So I have gone down to a 2.5 and I think it'll be okay. I think my gauge is a little loose for my liking, but I think it'll be fine. Early on, I was not thrilled with the fact that I was knitting with such dark yarn. It has gotten better. Clearly, this drop stitch is proof that I think that happened right around the time that I switched needle sizes. So I am knitting it on a 2.25 in fingering weight. There's no rush really to finish this hat. I do like the slow nature of just going round and round. It is really meditative. I am using like driftwood needles and I'm using a 12-inch needle, which I would traditionally use for like sleeves of a sweater. But I just find that I like this smaller circumference. It's been working out well. Since I finished my January Freckled Whimsy socks, I got my February, which is called Gingerbread Kisses and Christmas Wishes. And so it is another 6-color repeat. This one is very, very Christmassy. I have started it. This has been my project. I pretty much cast it on right at the beginning of February because I wanted something to have handy. I had a day where I was kind of running from one doctor appointment to another, and I just felt like socks are those really great, small, portable projects that when you're sitting in the waiting room and somebody calls your name, it's okay if I jump or drop it, because other than that stitch marker, um, it's nice to have. One of my appointments was like a follow-up mammogram. So you get called back, but then you're like sitting in that cubby waiting for them to actually take you after you've changed. And again, small and portable. So it worked out really well. I would really like to have them done by the end of February to keep going with my goal. The other project that I have going that's really kind of meditative in nature is another sock. And this one is just a plain vanilla sock. It actually has an Eye of Partridge heel, which I love the look of. And I like the fit of them. I have learned to love the simplicity of just a regular slip stitch heel, so I don't really think about it much. And so this sock right here is really old. This is a really old whip. This colorway is called Sailor Story. And this is from an old sock club that I did called the Cabana Club. It was based on every year I picked a different genre or theme of music. And Sailor Stories came from the song Brandy by The Looking Glass. And so I want to say I did that I think that was the year that I picked 70s songs. So that was probably like 2018. So this is a really old whip. This was a sock that I had gotten to like right here. And then somewhere before Christmas, I finished this sock. And then I kind of sat around, and then I did pick it up again in January, and I started the second sock. As you can see, I've gotten through it. I have started the heel. I'm working through the heel. I would love to clear out some old whips, and obviously a whip from 2018 needs to get finished. So my hope is I have a lot of socks lying around from my Cabana Club years where I would start a sock and sometimes finish the sock to show off the colorway, but not always do the second sock or not even finish the first one. It was really just for a flat lay photo for Instagram and Facebook. And so I have a lot of socks that are started, and this is part. I would like to finish like one of these pairs of socks maybe every month. Like maybe I set that as a goal. I hesitate to set goals for knitting, but who knows? So I have slowly been working on that because it's a Eye of Partridge heel. It's not, there's a 4-row repeat essentially for that. So that's not something that I would traditionally work on when I'm sitting and talking, socializing, because I have to remember what row I'm on. So there is that. But it is something that I can work on in the evenings if I'm like watching TV and the dogs are really quiet. That leads me to another project that that kind of coincides with goals, I guess. And it's not a hard set goal, but it kind of goes along with the freckled whimsy. And that is I am working on the bibliophile shawl. And this is a make-along pattern. And I forget the designer's name. I want to say her first name is Rachel or Sarah. I'm going to put her name up here. But this is a monthly make-along where probably by the mid-February, I will get an update in the pattern for the March yarn, and that will remind me to go and order my March colorway from Frogget Yarns, who the designer has designed it for. And so we have mine in a little plastic bag so they don't get unwieldy. So I have leftovers from my January and my February. I think I might have enough leftovers to at least do shorty socks. We'll see. I don't know if we use them at the other end of the shawl. I'm not sure. But we started out with this beautiful rickrack texture in the January color. Now, I did have a row that I messed up on. I don't know if you can see it, but I love the way the rickrack stitch looks. But guys, it was not my favorite thing to knit, but I just love how this turned out. So this was January's color, and then the contrast color is here, beautiful. February's color that goes with the book was this beautiful eyelet. This went so fast. And then the green is the contrast color. So when you order it from Frogget Yarns, you just have to order what I call a micro sock set. So it's a 50-gram skein with a 20-gram mini in fingering weight. And each month coincides with Tasha's book club pick. And she does pick primarily fantasy, which for me as a reader is not my genre of choice per se. I want to say this year might actually be all romantasy novels, which is a genre of my choice. I am just behind in reading what she's reading because I've had some advanced readers copies of other things to read. And I know for one, I'm waiting on my library. So I'm really excited about this, but again, this is not one that auto orders for me, like Freckled Whimsies just auto renews. I have to remember every month to go to the Frogget website, order the yarn, and it's always like I'll order it mid-February, it'll ship, and I'll have it by end of February, beginning of March, ready to knit the next section. So I'm really excited for this. I love the slow nature of this so far. So for me, I have a pair of socks to do every month. I have a section of the shawl to do every month. And for me, that feels really nice. It feels like it's more slow going because quite honestly, if I did nothing all week and just knit socks, I can actually knit a pair of socks in a week. That's not hard for me per se, because I knit primarily vanilla socks. So knitting a pair of socks a month and knitting a section of a shawl. Now, granted, when I get to month 6, 7, maybe even 8, those middle sections of a shawl, because I don't remember the shape of this, but this might be where it gets bigger and then we get smaller again. That's my hope. So that middle section of that shawl is definitely going to take me longer each month, but this just feels really fun. And I do really love how we're using the mini skeins to break up the textured sections. And Tasha did say last week in her video that there is continuity in her colorways. Like, this is not just random colors being thrown in. They are really kind of flowing in a sequential type of order, even though she's picking book covers. But it sounds like she's picking them so that they flow and there's continuity and it just doesn't look hodgy-podgy. So I'm really excited about that slow project to work on throughout the year. One of the projects that I talked about in my winter knitting plans video and in my Make 9 was the Dock Street sweater by Kim Schaefer. Kim is a member of my local knitting guild, and as a guild, we decided in December that we wanted to all, as a community of knitters, knit the same sweater using Maryland-based yarn. Kim is a Maryland-based designer. And then we would have a sweater for Maryland sheep and wool, which is kind of like in our backyard. So the Dock Street sweater of Kim's was selected, and Kim and I have been running in-person and Zoom meetups for our guild this month. And so I started mine. Then I realized that I had dropped a stitch in like row 3 and I was already like down to row 40, and I had messed up one of the texture stripes early on, but originally I was like, oh, it's on the back of my neck. No one's going to see. Well, I just decided between the wrong texture and then a drop stitch, I just ripped it out and started over. But I have gotten farther. So I am using a colorway from my Efron Essentials Club this year. Every month I am dyeing a colorway that coincides with a theme or a quote from a famous Nora Ephron movie. I have chosen 3 of her movies for this year. We're starting with Sleepless in Seattle for the first 4 months. Then we will move into When Harry Met Sally, and then we will round out the last 4 months of the year with You've Got Mail. These are movies from my young adult youth time. They're movies that I find kind of comforting. I always liked Nora Ephron's humor and wisdom. So the first colorway was called Late Night Radio, and it is this beautiful like pale blue, and we've got some yellows and reds and some darker blues. It's just a really beautiful color. So I'm not very far, but you can see this is a raglan shaped sweater. I have it on a shorter needle. I should probably expand it. Now, the sweater calls for different colors in the stripes. I didn't want larger horizontal stripes. I just didn't want to wear them. So I opted for this speckly colorway because I feel like you can still see the texture and that striping. It's just monochromatic and not as noticeable. I do really like this pattern. I think initially some people struggled with it more because they're not accustomed to actually reading a pattern. They are very accustomed to some of these really large designers kind of watering down patterns, and they skip the paragraphs where it's explaining what you're supposed to be doing, and they're just going to the rows, those blips of rows. And Kim designed this with actually shaping tables in the back. And literally, you do row 3 and row 4, and you go to that shaping table and you understand really the pattern itself. And the only time you revert back away from that table is for those textured rows. I think it's brilliantly written, but my brain works like that. I need to have this done by the beginning of May. Again, I started it, I ripped it out. This is something that I tend to do when I'm knitting socially, so if I'm online with friends, but I'm not racing to get it done because it's February and I have all of February and all of March. It is on my Calvert DK. You can still get this colorway. You'll be able to get it all year long. I am knitting mine on a US 5. It is a DK weight sweater. It is written for long sleeves. We did kind of talk through during a presentation to our guild. Kim and I talked through about using alternative fibers. Like I really encouraged people to use 50% cotton, 50% wool if they were going to make it short sleeve. We talked about variations with the striping. So I'm very pleased. I have a whole video on winter plans, and you can revisit it there if you want more information about that pattern. The other sweater that I've been working on is my Atayu pattern. And this was a pattern that I started it. This is one that I picked. I bought the yarn. These different colorways in the colorwork are from Plied Yarns. I just bought 2 bobbins of every single color. And then the bright purple is my Garrett fingering, which is a Peruvian wool. So all of this is very much a rustic, traditional wool sweater. I love this. I love the way it looks. I have split first sleeves. I haven't made any more progress than the last time you may have saw this in my Make 9 video, but I have reached the point in the pattern where we're going round and round, which is my favorite point. I don't know why I haven't picked this up, other than now it's bigger and I've been working on all these tiny parts, because again, we've reached the part that I enjoy, going round and round and round. This is knit, I believe, yeah, a US 3. I will be very pleased with this. Again, I'm not in a rush to finish this, as much as I would love to finish it by the end of March, but then I can't wear it. I do know that because it's a fingering weight, the body isn't going to probably faze me, but the sleeves are going to probably annoy the heck out of me. And it's just because they're going to feel very much like slow progress. And I don't really enjoy doing sleeves. I love making sweaters, but I don't enjoy sleeves. I don't think a lot of us do. And it's one thing if I don't have to do the decreases, but I like to go around and around. And so decreasing means I have to count and I have to keep track and I have to think. And so traditionally, the way I have powered through sleeves is turned on a movie. I feel like if you're watching a movie, you're so heavily focused on the movie, but you're paying just enough attention to your knitting to count, and I do the little markers for every decrease. So they do go faster, but that's traditionally with a DK or worsted weight sweater. So again, I am determined to make this a slow year of making, and I'm not going to race through anything. One of the other projects that I've been kind of secretly working on, and this was kind of a last minute thing, I did cast on in January, is since I'm doing the Efron Essentials collection this year, I decided I want to do a blanket in those colors. So I did cast on a blanket, and I cast on with my late night radio, which is the blue, and then it's February, and I've already cast on and completed February's colorway. February's colorway is called Empire State of Mind. I'll put the inspiration photo here. I love how these 2 colorways flow. And I've already kind of obviously thought ahead throughout the year as to how I want things to flow. I want some continuity between colors. I don't necessarily want anything that's super jarring, at least within the same movie. So I like how these 2 have played together. I am using a signature needle. They are not in business anymore. It is a US 6 4mm needle. I have about 250 stitches on the needle. My plan is to probably do this and then go back and do an I-cord all the way around, but we'll see. That seems tedious to me, but you never know. I might actually enjoy that. So that leads us into shop news. And so you've heard me now talk about the Efron Essentials a few times, and I've explained what it is. Those colorways are available. There's a whole tab on my website strictly for it. So you can go back and order January's if you want to make a cozy comfort throw as well. And February's is up as well. I'm super excited about this. Next week is my birthday week, and I have a new colorway coming out based on my 2026 word of the year. I really kind of sat with what my word of the year was going to be, and it has definitely stuck, and it is still kind of holding on to me. So I dyed that color back in December or beginning of January, during that time frame where we didn't know what day it was because it's between Christmas and New Year's. I did dye a beautiful colorway. I love the colorway. I've knit up my swatch, and I'm already dreaming of, like, do I want a sweater in this colorway? So while I won't reveal the colorway just yet, I will say that my 2026 word of the year is nostalgia. And that is because I am loving seeing younger generations and even a few people that lived through it, but seeing generations who never experienced an analog life. And I have gone back and started the whole Stranger Things series over. And I think what drew me to it is, after finishing the final season last month, I think what drew me or sucked me back into watching it from the beginning again was just the simple fact that there is comfort in the familiarity of things like the mall and Walkmans and the music. And so it was all very nostalgic, but it has been really great to see younger generations go back and are beginning to enjoy the things that we enjoyed in our youth, only they're experiencing them for the first time. You see these, Instagram reels where little kids that are like 9 and 10 have gotten an alarm clock and they're just so amazed the radio comes out of it, or they're basically embracing those single-use electronics, things like actual cameras, actual, music devices. So I do have this yearning for owning things again, owning the books that I read, owning the music that I listen to, owning the movies that I watch. So nostalgia has really been kind of hitting me hard. I have not created an analog bag like the younger generations are because, quite frankly, my hobbies are already rather analog when we think about knitting and reading. And that takes us into what I've been reading lately. So I am going to just quickly run through some books that I read in January and what I've read so far in February. My reading has really I wouldn't say it's plummeted. It has not plummeted. But other than having a few days during my teaching winter break between Christmas and New Year's, I haven't had a huge opportunity to spend much time in my dye studio. For those of you that are new to my channel or you just don't know, my dye studio is in my garage, and my garage is not insulated. So though my proofing cabinet that I cook the yarn in is insulated, and I can turn on a space heater, like if it's 40 some degrees outside, I can definitely go out there and work. But when it's less than that, I'm pulling water from my spigot on the side of my house. So you're dealing with water frozen in the hose, that kind of thing. So I haven't, with this Arctic weather, I've not had the luxury of being able to go out and spend any time in my dye studio. And quite frankly, I don't think I'd want to have to get dressed for that and just be around wet things all the time. Even though I have had a space heater running in the garage just to kind of keep everything in there somewhat warm. So that means that I haven't been if I'm not spending a ton of time out there, I'm not spending as much time listening to audiobooks because, again, with this Arctic weather, there was like a week and a half where I couldn't get my vehicles out. So then I'm not driving anywhere either. So my audio consumption of books is probably lower than it usually is. I saw the Thursday Murder Club on Netflix. I didn't watch it, but there are actors and actresses in it that I enjoy. So I thought, well, maybe I want to watch that. But everyone says it's such an amazing book. And then I kept telling myself, I don't think you're going to like it because it's a mystery and you don't like mysteries, Melissa. And I just was like, well, I think it might be a cozy mystery and it has old people. And I like old people. And I do enjoy cozy mysteries sort of like as palate cleansers because there's not too much to them. So I listened to the Thursday Murder Club. I did not enjoy it. I couldn't wait for that audiobook to be over. And the one thing I know about myself is I don't really like to DNF books. And for this one, once I hit like the 60% mark, then I feel like I've wasted so much time already listening to 60% of it. I might as well finish it because I'm more than halfway through it. I did not enjoy it. I liked the premise of, older people in a retirement community trying to solve this mystery, but it's not for me. I think I might try the Netflix show. That might be a little bit different because there is some comedic timing to the book itself, but it just didn't hit for me. I also read Peach Blossom Springs. This is a book that I have had since February of 2022. And I liked the premise. It is 1938 in China, and as the Japanese, are approaching for occupation, we are following a mother and a son and their journey up to like modern day, and sort of like the bitterness and the resentment that the son kind of has from his childhood and his youth, and then sort of like the reckoning that he understands of like the sacrifices that not only he had to make as a child, but really coming to terms with the sacrifices that his mom had to make, even though when she was making all these sacrifices, it frustrated the heck out of him, particularly as an adult with his own family in America. This was a really great book. I will admit I split my time between this and the audiobook. I did really, really enjoy the audiobook. So if you're like me and historical fiction is a little bit harder for you to digest when you're reading, for me, because I do most of my reading at night before bed, historical fiction can sometimes put me to sleep faster, so I don't read quite as much. You could certainly listen to the audio version, and it's excellent. The next book I listened to, this was called The Flight Girls by Noelle Salazar. This one talks about female pilots, and this takes place around Pearl Harbor. So if you are a World War II fan, again, if you like historical fiction, this one was definitely slower for me. This was another book that I enjoyed. This one, I will say I did enjoy this one, but there were moments where it felt like it was dragging, and I think that's more of a me issue, not the author issue. I think I've read so much World War II novels, and again, historical fiction is not something that I traditionally read. I listen to it, and this one got a little slow in places, but I think it's just because I was like, all right, I know what's going to happen. Like, come on, let's keep going. But definitely a good book if you're interested in a different aspect of World War II, not in regards to the Nazis, but with Japan. The next book, and this one I just finished this week, was The Griffin Sisters' Greatest Hits by Jennifer Weiner. This one, again, is one that I tag team between the book and the audio version. The audio version is read by Dakota Fanning. So I really enjoyed when I was out and about listening to it. This one is the story of the Griffin sisters, who were a singing duo, but they are very different sisters, not just in their personalities, but also in their appearances. And there's a major falling out that happens in their history. And now one of them has a daughter who is extremely talented and kind of goes in search of her mother's past that her mother never talked about, that involves this aunt that she doesn't know. This was really good. This is a really heartfelt story. Jennifer Weiner is known for, she's one of those authors who writes about characters that are usually, not the traditional skinny girl. They're a little bit heavier. They're not the prettiest girl. She just does it so well. But this was a beautiful story of sisterhood. I don't know what else to say. I loved it. The first time I saw him by Laura Dade, this is one that I had an advanced audio copy of. So I listened to it. If you are a fan of The Last Thing He Told Me, which was the previous book for this novel, and it was, I believe, I think it's on Netflix. This was astounding. I think I loved it more than the first. So if you haven't already read it, definitely read it. The next book is a book that I had an advanced reader copy of, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was called Just Add Happiness by Julie Hatcher. And I really liked this one because we're following a 46-year-old woman named Sophie. She leaves her husband. He's like a really controlling husband. She has this secret baking business, and she's essentially reinventing her life and really coming into her own. And so, as someone who will be 50 next week, this really was a lovely novel. I like reading about women who are closer to my age and are going through things that some of the rest of us in my age group are going through. So, really great book if you're just interested in more of a story about someone who's middle-aged and not in their 20s or 30s, starting out in life. And because sometimes I read those stories, as much as I love them, sometimes I even just like, oh my God, why are you making this choice? You're making such bad decisions. But that's because that's my life experience talking. Maybe I've made those same bad decisions. The other book that I read was My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. This was another one that I had an advanced audio copy of. I devoured it. If you enjoyed her last novel, Beautiful Ugly, this one is going to amaze you. Like, I don't even know how to talk about this book without revealing a whole heck of a lot. This is about a woman who she goes out, I think, on a run, and she comes back and the locks have been changed. And when she knocks on the door, there's another woman there that kind of resembles her and says that she's her husband's wife. Like, that she's basically claiming to be this woman, and she's taking over her life. And it is mind-boggling. I have never seen so many plot twists. It was like you couldn't find a reliable narrator in the whole thing. It was a super easy read. You will devour it in no time. I loved it. It's probably one of my favorite books from January. Another one that I read, this was another advanced reader's copy that I was reading at night. It was called Love and Other Brain Experiments by Hannah Brome. This one is in that world of STEM. And again, we're not dealing with necessarily really young, fresh out of college, starting their life, but these are PhD students writing their thesis paper, and this is an enemies to lovers. So if you like that STEM romance type of book, I think this is a good one. I can't say, I don't remember it being particularly spicy per se, but I enjoyed it. It was slow for me because I was sleeping, like staying up later and then going to bed and not being able to read more than a couple pages at a time. So it just took me a little longer to read through it. I did just recently finish Our Beautiful Mess by Adele Parks. This is a established author. I think she's written like 25 books. This was a thriller. There were elements of mystery to it that really kind of threw me. You're reading the story in multiple points of view. You essentially have a mother who has 3 grown daughters, and her middle one comes home for like Christmas with her new boyfriend, and she finds out her daughter's pregnant, and then her daughter's boyfriend's family comes, but it turns out that the boyfriend's biological dad that he's just met is a man that this mother had an affair with. Yeah, it is like messy from the get-go. I enjoyed it, but the last 20% gets really suspenseful. I woke up in the middle of the night one night and then couldn't go back to sleep, so I picked up this book and I plowed through that last 20% because I couldn't go back to sleep because it was like, oh my god, what is happening in this book? Really beautiful book in the end, but man, it got me. Currently reading, I am reading That's What Friends Are For by Wade Rouse. This is another advanced reader's copy for me. It comes out in March. It feels like the Golden Girls, and the premise is Golden Girls, but it's gay men. And I'm really kind of here for it. Like, I'm really having a good time with it. I we're right now I'm still in those beginning stages of the book where it's a lot of backstory on each of the 4 men. So we haven't really gotten into the nuts and bolts of the story yet, but I'm enjoying seeing how, like, meeting each of the 4 men and then how this is going to tie into the Golden Girls. The other book that I am reading, I am doing this by audio and reading it, and this is It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. This was my February book of the month pick, and for this one we're following Courtney. She's on a family vacation. Like, her sister and her family are in one cabin. Courtney and her husband and daughter are in another cabin, and her niece comes running across and, just hysterical. She goes over, she discovers that her brother and her sister-in-law have been murdered. Turns out that her oldest nephew slept through the whole thing. She's got her youngest niece, and then there's another niece that's missing. And so it's really just discovering that everyone seems to have a secret, and it's all starting to come out. This isn't a terribly long book. I think this one is going to grab me by the throat at some point, but I'm enjoying it. That's what I've been up to for the last few months, since you haven't seen me in about 8 weeks. Well, you've seen me, but you've not seen what I've been making and reading. As you can see, I am enjoying a little bit of a slower, steady pace to trying to enjoy what I'm reading and find simple, slow projects to carry me through the year. So if you are new here and you enjoyed today's episode, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I'd love to know, have you embraced any new making ideals this year, or have you read anything that you think I would love to read? I'd love to know. I'm always up for a good book recommendation. So until next time, friends, happy making and happy reading.